All right, here we are back for a return visit. One of my favorite guests that we've had a few years ago now is Carla Howard. Not only is she a professional speaker and workshop facilitator, she is also a change strategist addressing change leadership, change management, and she also helps women dream bigger and reach further. Wow, that is a big ball of wax to go after, Carla. So she's another one of my LinkedIn connections that was built on relationships, not a direct message pitch, people. So Carla Howard, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I can't believe it's been 2 years. That's crazy.
It has been. So for those of you that remember Carla, or maybe you don't, go back to episode 33. She is great at helping people learn how to get paid from the stage. The episode was called Personal Brands Can Get Paid from the Stage in August 2022. But we're not here to talk as much about getting paid from the stage as we are along this theme on reinvention. So we've been talking about reinvention, when to do it, how to do it. So Carla, I'm going to tee this up here. How did you go about reinventing yourself, and what brought you to where you are today?
Gosh, so many things. You know, I think my biggest reinvention really started when I got laid off from my corporate career, because I had to decide, and I didn't want to decide, by the way. I had to decide, am I going to go down the corporate route, or am I going to really lean into this entrepreneurial dream that I've had? And so I wanted to do both. And in my mind, I thought, well, I just won't choose. And that was kind of craziness, because you can't do either one well. So ultimately I did choose. I chose the entrepreneurial path, and it felt super uncomfortable. And it still feels uncomfortable some days, because, you know, if you're a person that likes to plan, and I am, your magic spreadsheet with your monthly bills fluctuates a lot. And so that was one of those scary things. And then just everything entrepreneurial, you know, how to market, how to, you know, building new products and, you know, creating new connections. It was all new. And so that 5 years ago was a huge reinvention for me.
Yes. And I think you bring out some really key points. When we're in corporate or working for someone else, we're not wearing all the hats like we are when we're an entrepreneur. All of a sudden, you're responsible for not only delivering your product or service, but you've got to find the right people to buy it. You've got to create the message to connect with them. It could be really overwhelming.
It's not only overwhelming, I'm not good at all of it. Mm-hmm. And I'm used to being in a corporate job where I am fantastic. I am the person to know, the person they call in, and I know that body of work. So for me, that's that change strategist work. I know it. So now here I am going, I have no idea how to even build an email list, or what to send, or how to create marketing material, or, you know, simple things like starting my YouTube channel, editing videos, like all of this stuff was new, and I'm not great at all of it. And you know what? I'm good enough. I can figure it out, and good enough is not something I was used to accepting, right? When you're an entrepreneur, you got to get to good enough and keep moving, or you will get completely stuck and you won't build the revenue streams.
Yes, that's really true. It's very humbling to realize that you are not the top of your expertise in all of those things, and to get that perfectionist idea of making everything perfect. You're going to be stuck back on square one if you're worried about making things perfect. And when you realize there's things that you don't do well and you don't like to do, when you get to the point, that's the point where you need to start looking at, how can I bring someone on to be a member of my team, or farm it out to other people?
That's absolutely right. I have to close the window because my yard people just showed up.
Okay. All right. We're going to take a break here then.
Yeah, that is exactly right, Lisa. And then, you know, finding that right partner, and even bringing somebody on is hard, right? Because you're used to doing all the things. You have your process, you know how you want it. So it's really easy to hang on to things, not bring on that help because it's just easier. And in the long run, it is not easier because you get bogged down with doing, first of all the things you're not great at. Right. So the quality suffers. And then you can't spend your time doing the things that you are great at and the things that are going to bring revenue into your business. And I keep going back to that because I've seen so many entrepreneurs create a business and get bogged down in the building of the business and all of the things that they don't get to the earning money part, right? And it's like, that's not sustainable.
No, it's not. It's not. I shared a post today on LinkedIn on how one of the very first things entrepreneurs feel like they need to do is to get that website up, right? Got to get that website up. Well, that may be important, but a lot of times that ends up being the story you're telling yourself that keeps you from having those sales conversations, prevents you from going out and networking and really doing the things that are going to drive revenue.
Yeah, I think most of the time, and I had a conversation with an entrepreneur the other day, and I said, yeah, you do need a website eventually. Guess what? You can go start selling stuff right now. Mm-hmm. Like, you're selling faith-based workshops. Go to some churches, talk to some people, offer it up, sell it, deliver it, and build your website while you're doing it. What happens is we fill our lives with busy, so we don't have to do the uncomfortable things we don't want to do. And one of the big lessons I've learned about being an entrepreneur is it is a lot of doing the things I don't like and I don't want to do, like selling my services. I'd way rather sit on the couch and, wait for someone to knock on the door to buy what I've got, but that's not going to happen. So we have to do the things we don't want to do in order to build a business. And it's easy to fill your day with important work that keeps you from doing the things you don't want to do.
That's very true. And I think too, this idea of getting uncomfortable. We may not like selling, but there may be different ways to go about it. So, yes. One way would be, you're not selling because people don't know what you do. So if you talk about what you do, if you create a very tight message that talks about who you serve, so the people in the audience becomes your sales team. You don't have to sell in the traditional way that we think of selling. There's a lot of creative ways you can do it. But the point you make that I take away, Carla, is don't be afraid to get uncomfortable, because uncomfortable is where growth happens.
Yeah, it does. And, I've found and leaned into ways of selling and providing value and kind of my non-negotiables that work for me. And some of them are completely different than what the gurus will tell you to do. So for example, I do use email to connect with people that are my ideal people. I've got a list of folks for different programs who I've had conversations with, and I know that they're interested. Here's what I don't do. I'm not going to be the one that's going to send you 5 emails in a week because I hate it when it's done to me. So I'm not doing it. And any launch program you take, they're going to tell you to do that. The other thing they're going to tell you to do is create a sense of urgency by putting your product on sale. Now, I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do. It depends on your strategy and how you're building your business. I don't do it. And the reason I don't do it is like with the Get Paid from the Stage program. Right now, it's $3,200. If someone signs up for it today and next week I do a big, for the next 2 weeks, if you sign up, you get $500 off. That person just paid $3,200 is going to be a little bit upset, right?
Yeah.
And I have value-based pricing. And so I always tell everyone, there'll never be a lower price. It'll go up over time. It'll never go on sale, and it'll never be less, because I hate it when I buy something. Christmas time is a perfect example. I wait for the great sale. I think I've got the right one. And then a week later, it's like, oh, and now if you buy that, you get this product for free. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Because I just bought it. So I don't ever want my people to feel that way. I think what's important when you're building your business is you decide what works for you. What are your parameters? And I sell very differently. And I'll learn and I'll add new ways, and I know what I won't do. And so knowing that for me gives me a lot of security.
Yes. And I really appreciate that, because what I hear in that, and I think a lot of people are so quick to jump in and decide what I want to sell and go after it, is really establishing, what do you stand for and what do you not stand for? What are the things that feel aligned with you? And I'm right there with you on that about, somebody has committed to you, they've traded their hard-earned money for the value you provide, and then later you just go and give part of it away to somebody else. But the other thing I have a very difficult time with is this false sense of scarcity.
Yes.
Right? So if you've got 6 hours left, or you're never going to be able to get it again. And so this pushing people into a corner to make a decision. Do you really want to work with people who felt forced to work with you?
Exactly.
Is that going to be a good long-term relationship? It's going to be really hard. So when we look at this idea of starting our business and all of these things that we feel we have to do, like juggling all these balls, wearing all of these hats, when you look back at starting your business 5 years ago, Carla, what's something you did that you felt like you did very well? And then I'm going to ask, what's something that you probably could have thought about doing differently?
Yeah. So the one thing that I did really, really well that helped me so much happened long before I started my business. I recognized pretty early on the value of LinkedIn. And the reason why it came to me as this is a valuable way to stay connected is I saw people that I had worked with or worked for moving on to other organizations, right? And I'm like, man, if I don't stay connected to them here, I am not going to have any idea where they're at in 5 years. I just won't. I don't have the magic spreadsheet. I don't have them all in my phone. So I started probably 5 years before I went into full-time entrepreneurship. Every new person I met at work, I connected on LinkedIn with them. If I went to a meeting with you and we met for the first time, when I got back to my desk, I would send you a note and say, it was great to meet you in the meeting today. Let's get connected on LinkedIn. So I began very deliberately reaching out and connecting with people that I worked with. I did the same thing when I went to conferences and events. If I talked to you and we had a great conversation, you were going to get a LinkedIn request from me. You might not accept it, but you were going to get one. So what that did for me when I went into full-time entrepreneurship, because one of the things that I do is I'm a change strategist. So I'm a consultant and I go in and I teach leaders how to lead change successfully. And I'll even, roll up my sleeves and lead initiatives and programs if they need me to do that. So what that did for me is right away, I could reach out to these leaders because I'm connected on LinkedIn. And over the course of 5 years, they've all gone all over the place, which I love because now I've got an in at hundreds of companies where I can reach out and say, hey, can't believe it's been so long since we worked together at X. Here's what I'm doing today. If there's an opportunity to support you, I'd love to learn how I can do that. And even as I'm saying that, it was longer than 5 years. It was more like 10 or 15 years because I started a long time ago creating those connections. So right now I've got 6,000 connections and there's a handful that are people that have reached out to me. I'd say at least 4,000 of those are people I've had conversations with and know a little something about my work in some capacity. And that was a game changer for me when I started, really looking to scale and build my business.
That is quite impressive because I think a lot of times we get busy, we get out there, we get back we've got our to-do list, and we don't take advantage of those opportunities of having that proximity for people to say, oh yeah, I did connect with you. Still, while they're in that 24-hour space of knowing who you are and having that great conversation to feel good about connecting with you. I think far too many people neglect doing that. And it shows to have that many connections, and especially to have had that many conversations. So that's what you did well. What were, looking back when you started, what's something that you probably could have done differently, Carla?
Man, there's a lot of time for that. I think the one thing I could have done differently, and I still struggle with it, is when I'm at that point where I need to scale, is that now I don't want to reach out to those connections, right? Like I built them, and yet it feels weird to reach out and say, hey, here's my situation. Here's what I'm doing. I would love to learn how I can support you. And I go back now and I read my initial messages that I sent on LinkedIn, and I just cringe because, unfortunately they don't go away. And so, I'm like reading through them going, man, I could have written that so much better. It's like, it's too long. It's, if I were that person, I wouldn't have responded to that. So, you learn as you go. I now make my messages much shorter, and it's less about me and what I'm doing. And it's about, you have to say, this is how I can support you. It is all about, if you and your team are in need for this kind of support, I would love to learn how I can help you be successful in your business and your transformations. Here's how to get a hold of me. So yes, I'm going to reference it, but because I already have a connection with them, they know what I do. I don't have to go into all the details. What's more important is they get a message that says, hey, I'm here. I care about you and your business. I'm here to support you and your team if you need me. And that has made a big difference in the response rate and the type of responses I get back.
Yeah. Very focused, service-oriented, client-centric. I'm here for you. How can I help? So really doing that rather than going in saying, I can do all of this for you, being very forceful. How do you even know that they need it? Right.
That's right.
And I do want to support you, Carla. When we start out on LinkedIn, we're not really sure. And also it was a different day and age during those times when you were writing those messages. LinkedIn has changed dramatically over the last 3 and 4 years of what we're looking at. And I imagine, I know our companies have changed as well, which is why your ability to come in to speak about change leadership, change management, you're not only reinventing yourself, but now you're helping companies reinvent themselves. Tell us a little bit about the work that you do in that area.
Gosh, this is really, the work of my heart, because it makes a difference. It makes a difference for the leaders and the projects that I work on. And it makes a difference for the people in the organization that are undergoing transformation. I'll tell you the shift that has happened in just this last year. I've always been really passionate about the discipline and the structure of change management, because the whole focus is people, and it supports people in moving from the way they do work today to the way they're going to do work tomorrow successfully. And it buttons up with the project plan and supports executives, project managers. Many years ago, I recognized the importance for leaders, because what change management really does when we focus on change leadership is it gives them the tools, exactly what they need to do in order to create successful change with the people that report to them. And in the process, they become better leaders. They become more influential. They become more promotable within their organizations and outside of their organizations. And it elevates their leadership skill set. So that was, I'd say, the second transformation. So the third one that's really happened this year and really has come home to me in the last 6 months is what I'm really doing is helping them change their culture. Because the way we lead change has a significant impact on our culture. It changes the way people feel. It changes what they have capacity for. And it creates this supportive network for people. There's a great definition of culture. And the guy's name is Bill, I'm going to mess it up. I can't remember his last name, Bill McLean. I use it all the time. And it is this: culture is the way that employees' hearts and stomachs feel on Sunday night about Monday morning. And there's nothing like learning how to lead really transformational change, which can be very unsettling in a way that supports people, that's going to change the culture of your organization.
Yes, and it does start at the top. And I think what we've seen, and we talk a lot about culture on this podcast, we've had quite a few culture conversations, is the employees that we had pre-pandemic, when everyone was in the office back in 2019, those employees no longer exist. They may be the same human in their body, but their attitudes, their behaviors, what they prioritize, how they feel about work has shifted, which demands that we have a new type of leadership to bring them on. And the fact of the matter is we have not trained our leaders to do this.
No.
As you're finding out.
Yeah. So one of the things, it's interesting. This question always happened whenever I, would come in and lead change in an organization or support leaders and really learning what they need to do. Then two things would always happen. The number one question I get is how to manage resistance to change. Mm-hmm. Leaders really, really struggle with that. That's usually their biggest, really struggling here. So I walk them through 10 things, 4 of them they do in order, and that really help them with that. And then, so again, since the pandemic, something new is I also give them 5 engagement strategies for virtual employees. Because, yes, it is the same thing, and we have to be really deliberate and thoughtful about making sure our virtual employees have a sense of belonging with the employees that are in the office, because most companies have a mix. Some are 100% virtual. And there's just simple things we can do. I think a lot of times it feels like it's big. We have to do these huge things, these big things. I got to change everything about the way I lead. No. Small tweaks that are going to make you more effective and actually save you time, because you're not going to be doing the ineffective things that aren't working anyway.
Right. A lot of wasted time, a lot of wasted energy in there. So you've piqued my curiosity, Carla. I know so many companies, I just brought in a new client that is 100% remote. What is one thing that you would not mind sharing with us that we could do to engage those remote workers?
One thing that I love doing, and I do it with inside my Rise Sister membership too, is co-working. So you schedule an hour and a half, 1 day a week. Everybody gets on a Zoom call, whether you're in the office or remote. Everybody's going to be on the computer, and you just do a quick round robin. What are we going to work on for the next 25 minutes? And we do these the Pomodoro 25-minute work bursts. So then cameras and microphones go off. We all go work for 25 minutes, come back and report progress, and then have an opportunity to say, is anybody feeling stuck? Does anybody need any help from the team on something that they're working on? Have a 25-minute conversation around that if it's needed, and then do another 25-minute working burst. Does a couple of things. It gets people used to working in time blocks, which is incredibly productive. It promotes that conversation. And it also gives us, I love it because I have the pesky things on my to-do list I kind of don't really want to do. It gives me a space to go, I'm going to knock that out on Thursday mornings. And everybody's contributing in the same way. And so it just creates that sense of community and working together. And then we have that opportunity to share where we might be stuck. Because otherwise, they're going to be sitting at home just powering through trying to figure it out.
Or not powering through and getting distracted when something happens and then maybe having a hard time going back to it. But when you know you have that dedicated time and you do have a resource to get another perspective or idea, there's a lot of value in that.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of value in that. I love that. So when you work with companies on this change management or change leadership, Carla, what does that look like? Is it you're coming in and giving a speech about it, to talk about it? Are you in a consulting relationship with them? What could that look like?
Man, it can look so many different ways. So I'll give you two examples. I did a change management, change leadership workshop, leading yourself and others through change, last Thursday. So it was a 2-hour session. It was with a group that I had never worked with before. And it was the first part of it was education on what is change management and change leadership. Why is it important? I introduced a framework that will help them lead themselves and others through change. And then they did a self-assessment. We talked about some results for that. I shared with them the managing resistance tactics. And then they did a breakout on how are they going to apply that now to a change that they're facing in their organization. And then we, had some Q&A. So that was 2 hours. And that was a very discrete piece of work. I may go back and support them with other workshops or actually rolling up my sleeves and doing change management. So I've had a long-term engagement for 3.5 years with an organization where I did a ton of work with them. So I managed it. They had mergers and acquisitions, and I managed those on the people side of change. So I set up the framework, had meetings with leaders, made sure they were doing the things they needed to do in the merger and acquisition space, and then provided coaching to them on, now we need to communicate with employees, y'all. Here's what I'm recommending, and led the change management of the acquisition. So that's big, right? That's a big body of work. It was full-time work for that one. It was about 6 months of just working on the acquisition, supporting leaders, and then putting the framework in place. And I've done smaller things too, like rolling out a system. And so that's fractional work where I meet with leaders, I learn about, what they've got going on. I work with the project manager and then very tactically create a change management plan that we then now go, I create some of the content, project managers, corporate communications create some of the content, and I'm leading and managing that plan all the way through. So it can go from a 2-hour workshop to I need you for 6 months to come in and really manage the people side of this acquisition, to fractional. We have this smaller change and we just, we need you to help us with this. And it's maybe, 10, 20 hours a week for however long, depending on the size of the project. So it's kind of all over the board.
Yes. So this makes me think about, we started the conversation when you left corporate to become an entrepreneur. Then you get into some of this consulting work. And when you no longer have a client, then you're back into the reinvention cycle, right? Like
yes.
you're trying to, what do you do next, right? How do you move forward?
Yeah, that's where I am right now. So my long-term consulting client has ended, and it's been I call it my comfy hammock, right? Because I've had it for 3.5 years and loved it, loved the work. The CEO stepped down. He's now, no longer leading the company. He's still a shareholder, but not in the CEO seat. And so, things are changing. And so that contract has ended. And now I'm like, oh, okay, what are we going to do next, right? I do love the speaking side of my work. So I have one thing I love about the way I've built my business is I have multiple revenue streams and multiple levers I can pull. So I've started having conversations about keynotes and conferences, events, things like that I'm booking, which is fantastic. I've started having conversations with leaders that I know about change management needs that they have coming up, or change management training for people in their organization. And, I'm in that new space of what do I want to do now? Like, this has been great for me for a time, and now what? And so I'm really in the process of reinventing by leaning into the things that I know are my superpowers and my strengths and getting out there and finding those opportunities, right? And so I don't know exactly what it's going to look like in 6 months. There's a couple of ways that this could go. All of them are great. My job right now is to take the steps, lean into knowing that the right opportunities are going to open up, and just have some fun with it. So that's what I'm doing.
And I think that's really important. It's taking aligned action, not sitting back and stewing and worrying about where is this going to go. It's really listening to yourself and taking those steps and putting yourself out there to start having conversations. People will not give you opportunities unless they know you are open to opportunities. So I think that's really important as well. So speaking of different streams of revenue, you also have a personal, I want to say mission, Carla, that I know you for, of working with women. And in the introduction, I talked about how you help women live out their dreams. So speak a little bit about your Rise community that you referenced.
Oh, I love these ladies so much. So it was really interesting. So I'm a meditator. I love to meditate and just kind of take a breath and see what comes up. And it was at the beginning of COVID, I was meditating and I was thinking about other women that were like me, that were just kind of out there. You know, I'm used to having women I can talk to at work and having those connections. And I was feeling kind of lonely as an entrepreneur because it was like, well, now I have to do everything. I have nobody to talk to. I got it's COVID. I can't hardly leave my house. And I kept hearing this message in my meditation, and it was connect and serve, connect and serve, connect and serve. And I'm like, how am I going to do that? And I thought, you know what? I just got to be other people. I'm going to create a Facebook community. And so I did. I created the Sparkle and Rise Facebook community. And I love the description of it. It is for kind and ambitious women, because so many times ambitious has a negative connotation when it is associated with women. And we can and should be kind and ambitious. We're not one or the other. We are both. We are amazing humans that can have kindness and love in our hearts and be ambitious and have great success. So started the Facebook community that was not for selling. It really is to bring kind and ambitious women together. And today we have, I think, 750 women in there around the world. We do coffee chats. There's fun posts. It's a really cool community. And then from there, I built a membership. It's the Rise Sister membership. It's for kind and ambitious female entrepreneurs. So in there, we do masterminds, we do a book club, and we do the co-working I talked about, in addition to some threads. And sometimes there'll be little meetups. If people happen to be in town, we'll meet up with them here at a coffee shop. And that is really about helping other entrepreneurs just have a place to say, okay, I'm redoing my logo. Could somebody, let's take a look at it and just give me your feedback. Like, I'm struggling over here. So it really gives us that safe place to do that. And then as a speaker, I have keynotes and workshops that are designed for women's conferences, women's events, or women ERG breakouts inside of larger conferences.
Yes. No, I think that's all great, because you are looking at the fact that entrepreneurship is not being at your corporate place. You do need people to walk alongside you in it. You do need to be able to get feedback. And I think a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we want to say, oh, everything's great. Everything's great, right? But that's the image we want to put out. But the fact of the matter is there are times where we all question ourselves, or is this the right thing? Or can you give me that perspective? I do want to pull on a thread that you mentioned, that sometimes it's difficult for women to be known as ambitious.
Yes.
Let's unpack that a little bit, Carla. What was behind that comment?
So much experience, I would say in corporate, more in corporate than as an entrepreneur. I think people expect women that are entrepreneurs to be ambitious, because you can't earn a living doing this crazy work if you're not. So for me, here's what I know, and this is true whether you're in corporate or you're an entrepreneur. Women pay a really high tax for not being seen as likable. We've all seen the surveys. You know, it's something that all of us have experienced. That look, that hesitation, comments when we're not seen as likable. So Harvard Business Review did a study and asked, would you rather work with someone that's competent or likable? And I'm like reading this thing going, oh, it's going to be competent. There's no way they're going to say likable. And I was wrong. They said likable. And they came up with a term that I love. And this relates back to what I want women to be in their personal lives, in their entrepreneurial journeys, and in their workplaces. And that is what Harvard Business Review coined as a lovable star. So what does that mean? That means they're competent and likable. And the secret sauce of doing that is connection and creating a sense of collaboration and not an us versus them conversation. You can still be powerful in a room. You can still state your ideas with conviction, and you can do it in a way that maintains your power and your likability at the same time. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I do a talk on this where I have been filled with tons of examples. This is one I use all the time. If you're in a room and let's say there's, 3 high-level leaders and, 6 of your peers in the room, and there's a decision made and you're thinking, oh man, I don't think that's the right way to go. And everybody is just, yeah, that's great. We're going to do this or that. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to figure out how to share your idea. Most likely, most of the time, what I hear women doing is something like this. Well, I don't know. This might be a really bad idea, but I was kind of thinking that maybe if we, and then they share their idea, right? It is not powerful. And it really, it doesn't create more likability, nor does it make you look like you're competent. Mm-hmm. So something that I will do is I always tell women, have hip pocket phrases ready. My favorite one is, I see it differently. Here's what I'm thinking. The reason why that's so powerful is I see it differently isn't saying I'm right and you're wrong. It doesn't say, I think we're going down the wrong path. Although you could say that, and it's going to hurt your likability. Much, much more powerful to say, I see it differently. Here's what I'm thinking. And then get their reaction. So it's things like that we can do that completely change our ability to rise in our organizations and in our businesses.
That is brilliant, Carla. That is so good, because we don't want to come off as confrontational, saying I'm right, you're wrong, but the ability to be able to have a different opinion, to look at it from a different perspective, that's one thing that brings value to the table, that makes those conversations richer and brings in that connection to possibly encourage somebody else to come up with their opinion on that and share it as well.
Absolutely. And those kinds of statements create that atmosphere, and you're still powerful in the room. And so that was the whole idea behind kind and ambitious. I'm still kind. I'm creating connection. And I'm not willing to give up my power in order to do that. Mm-hmm. I am ambitious, and I am going after some big goals. Mm-hmm. And I can do that right alongside my male colleagues in a way that allows me to be that lovable star.
Yes. Lovable star. That's amazing. And speaking about lovable star, I'm going to reference your activity on LinkedIn, the kind and ambitious. Carla, since I've known you and followed you, and where we even first connected on LinkedIn when you reached out to me, I have watched you intentionally build your personal brand in a way where you are very approachable. You are very authentic. I know you were talking about doing videos, just a really short video, just however you look, just whipping out your camera and doing that. But also the kind piece is sharing other people's content. I know I've been the benefactor of you being able to share some of my content, and it meant so much to me. But talk to us a little bit about the strategy of how you're creating all of this content.
Yeah, I am posting on LinkedIn 2 to 3 times a day, and at least once on the weekend, sometimes more often than that. So the thing that I focus on is at least 80% of the time when I'm posting is I'm sharing someone else's content. I'm, giving my thought leadership as I share it. Here's what I really loved about what Lisa said. Check out the post below. So you're not just hitting the reshare button. You're adding your thoughts, because when people are following you, you want them to see you come up and they're going to know what you're about to talk about, right? So no more than 20% of the time are you going to see me do a post that's about me. As a speaker, you will see me create posts that say, I'm speaking, and I'm speaking at this event on this day. I'm going to tag the event organizer. I'm going to tag the association, just like I tagged you in my post where I share your content, because they're going to want to see that too. And they appreciate the fact that you're amplifying them, their company, and their brand. The other thing is I'll comment on other people's posts and share my thoughts there. Sometimes it's just full on support. Sometimes it's an alternate view, and being really deliberate about only doing that where it makes sense for me personally. So authentically me, this is what I think, this is what I feel, and not being afraid that somebody else isn't going to like it. I'm actually okay if it's not for somebody else. I think I shared with you when we got started, my favorite quote as it relates to building a brand is, if you're not turning anybody off, you're not turning anybody on. So if somebody reads my content or my post and says, that's not for me, I'm going to say, great. That means I'm actually saying something.
Yes. Yes. And what I love about how you're doing this, you are sharing your expertise, but when you share other people's content and you tell us what you think about it, that is where I'm getting to see your point of view. I'm going to see your personality in that. I'm going to see your values. I'm going to see your character. I'm going to see what you stand for and what you don't stand for. And that is what makes you so much more relatable, Carla. So kudos to you. And if you do not yet follow Carla on LinkedIn, let's boost her followers up a little bit more past her 6,000, not for those vanity metrics, but just for the value where you can see where she is actually modeling how to build this personal brand, where she is kind and ambitious and someone that I really appreciate being in my network.
Well, thank you for that. And here's the other thing. I enjoy it. I actually like building that community and having, those folks around me. And if I'm triggered by something or there's posts that I'm like, man, that doesn't resonate with me. Yeah. I unfollow people. I mean, you can really curate what you want to see on LinkedIn. It may be someone you care about. So you don't want to end your connection with them. Just simply go in and unfollow them. You don't have to see their content all the time popping up in your feed, and decide what works for you. For me, posting twice a day plus, at least once on the weekend, that works for me. I schedule it out. So right now I'm scheduled out for the next 2 weeks. I'll still add a few things in there, but I'm not really on LinkedIn all the time. It's deliberate. I time block when I'm going to, do my posts, and I'll pop in a couple times a day, make a few comments, maybe share something real quick, and I'm out, right? Because I have other things to do. So you can build that community and have the appearance of, man, you're really out there without having it control your entire day.
Yeah. So that's pulling back the curtain to see how Carla does it. But yes, I do appreciate that, Carla. For some people, posting on LinkedIn twice a week may be all they can handle, and that's okay. But when you are strategic about what you want to stand for and the type of content you want to promote, then you can schedule ahead of time. You can make it look like you're there, and really important to engage when you're on there as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Carla, you did not disappoint today. I knew that it would not be a boring conversation, a dull conversation. It's always exciting to speak with you. So if people would like to reach out to you, what's the best way to contact you?
Best way is honestly LinkedIn. Reach out to LinkedIn, connect with me. I'm really responsive on there. So if you send me a direct message, I'll get back to you usually that same day, but definitely within 24 hours. And yeah, I mean, that's really the best place to find me.
All right. Very good. Well, so many reinvention stories here, from Carla leaving corporate to reinvent herself as an entrepreneur, to helping businesses reinvent themselves, to helping women in a community reinvent themselves. You get a chance to reinvent yourself every day, and take the time to really look at what is it that you value, where do you want to go, and that will help you find your passion, discover your purpose, and show up as that personal brand of integrity. Because when you live a life of so much more is when you can find your legendary self. Thank you, Carla.
Thank you.